we'll move on to the next question. According to Customs and Border Protection, about 90% of fentanyl is seized at the border crossings, and 57% of smugglers are U.S. citizens. How would you stop fentanyl brought into the country by U.S. citizens through ports of entry?
Again, we should recognize that there is I did a whole video on this several years ago, that the drug business is actually a money laundering business for U.S. companies, right? And there's a wonderful systems analysis I did. There's an entire racket of U.S. companies who ship products over the border, and then those products are changed for cash into drugs, and then the drugs are brought in and sold here, and that cash is provided back in some very interesting laundering ways. There's a whole diagram I did on this. So you got to recognize that the drug business is part of a money laundering business that many U.S. companies are involved in actively, okay? So you cannot divorce whether it's fentanyl today or it's something else tomorrow, that all of this is part of a money laundering enterprise. Does that make sense? It's a money laundering enterprise. If you say, oh my God, we got to stop fentanyl, you're not seeing this larger piece. Again, it gets back to my central point. Everyone on that GOP debate stage is part of an organized crime family, okay? And that's what we should recognize. It's black and white. They don't want to solve any of these problems. They will do all the rhetoric, but the fundamental issue with fentanyl, right, which is a painkiller, right? We have to go back to the roots of this. You want me to get into the details of that? Diacetyl morphine used to be sold in the Sears catalog. You could buy it. Okay, you could buy it. It's actually a derivative of opium, which is a natural product, and you could buy diacetyl morphine for people who had chronic pain. There was where ibuprofen didn't work, diacetyl morphine did. There are people who have chronic pain, and diacetyl morphine did. So the Sears Roebuck catalog allowed you to buy it. Okay, it was very decriminalized. It was unregulated. Then suddenly one day they decided to call it heroin, take it off and make it a crime. And overnight, heroin sales went up. All right, and it was eating into big pharma sales. So therefore, there became the war on drugs. Okay, to support the pharma industry's products, and you'll see this entire scam of what's legal and illegal being very fluid. Depends on which organized crime family is in power. So what's legal one day becomes illegal another day. But this is all organized crime. Please write those two words down. We're looking at organized criminals on the GOP debate stage today. Every one of them has made money through illicit means. And so the fentanyl thing, we have to recognize, is a activity which is for money laundering. And none of those people want to stop that because they're all part of the organized crime system.
Excellent answer. Again, pointing the finger at the right person is very important.
Yeah, one of the things I mentioned in my first 100 days, we need to understand very clearly this. A lot of people may not know this, but there is an entire mafia network that's been established by a number of very interesting players, international players, global players, right? And these global players are not fully understood by a lot of the people in the United States right now, but they shouldn't. Who am I speaking about? Let me give you this important point here, is that if you look at countries like Liechtenstein, if you look at countries like Dubai, okay, if you look at countries like Singapore, okay, these countries have set up immense financial centers, Chris, and these financial centers are set up so all the criminals up on the stage up there can move capital around and do money laundering. And one of the things that I will do as president, which is not going to be seen as very favorable to these people, but it needs to be done, is that we need to establish an international tribunal. And that must be formed to investigate Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Singapore, Dubai, private banking. They have things called private bankers. And forensically, we need to have forensic auditors to determine how all those people on stage, the part of that mob, operates their billions in secret to achieve their objectives. That's what we need to do. We need to do a serious forensic audit. The real question is, what are we going to do about that crime? Let's focus on the real crime. You say the real crime is all those guys on stage. And that's why the only solution for everyone listening is you got to go to shivaforpresident.com and get ready to vote for Shiva for President. Get one of these bumper stickers and put it on the back of your car. And when you do that, you're saying a big fuck you. And what you're saying is, I'm going to come after all of you criminals by voting for Dr. Shiva. You see how they phrase these questions? It's an assumption that they're not criminals, okay? Chris Christie was the attorney general or whatever, the governor of New Jersey, where I grew up in. He's a fucking criminal, right? Who's he? He's a mobster. Look at him. He's a fat fucking mobster, right? By the way, I went to school with him. He used to be the catcher on our baseball team. Put on a lot of weight since then. But regardless of that, all of those people on the stage, Chris, are all criminals. The issue is, what are we going to do to jail them? What are we going to do to prosecute all of them? And why are they even on the debate stage? It's a crime that they use social media and then they have this alliance with government to make our campaign invisible. Is that not a crime? How many civil rights laws does that break? How many election interference laws does that break? So they get away with crime every day, okay? So we need to really define who's the criminal here. They're the criminals.